Hello Internet, welcome to the channel. My name's Frankie and in this video we are going to be building a habitat for the wonderful king penguin. When it was announced that the next pack coming to consoles was going to be the aquatic pack, I knew straight away that I was going to be wanting to build a habitat for the king penguin. I have a very special place in my heart for penguins. It's a bit of a story, but me and my wife, there's a big thing with penguins. So I knew straight away that these guys were going to be joining our zoo. And to begin their habitat, what I was going to do was create two viewing galleries. One was going to be above ground and the other would be below, which would serve as an underwater viewing gallery. Now, if you're going to be trying to make underwater viewing galleries, you're going to make sure that your paths go down, and to do this you're going to want to be in your path editor kind of area and then join to an existing path, but don't make it go straight underground. You want it to come away from your existing path at least 1 meter to begin with, like I do here, and then you can start to change the angle. To do this on PlayStation, you hold square, and then using the left stick you can go up or down to adjust where the path is going to be going. I do try to delete the bit that joins it together so that I can try and slope it straight from the kind of T-junction area, but I couldn't actually figure out how to do it. So just build a path that goes away from your main path and then start to slope your path from that point. It's useful to have your angle snap at this stage so that you are making sure that your path is actually straight, because it's very easy to have a curved staircase, which is completely fine, but if you want a straight thing, then that's what you should do. When you get it to an appropriate height, you hold square again and bring it back up to being quite level, and you can create a viewing gallery underground. As you can see there, you need to make sure that in the settings page of your terrain editor that tunneling is on and flattened terrain. Both those things are really going to help, because then your paths actually will dig holes in the ground rather than, well, it just doesn't let you place them if you don't have the tunneling option on. So once I've got the basic shape of where I want the paths to be underground, I use the terrain editing tools to just get rid of some of the terrain that is left above the path. I do end up covering this back up later, but I want it to be my own texture and I want to actually be able to see what I'm doing down here. So it's important to get rid of this ground at this stage at least. I then actually use the depth of the path to start to create my water area for our penguins. So the ground that is underneath the path that has been created by using tunneling, I go to that height and then use flatten to terrain, or no, flatten to foundation even, sorry. And then I will carve out a big area that is going to serve as our deep water section in our penguin enclosure. It's nothing fancy, it really is just a big rectangle of decreased earth, just cutting out this big section that I will then later fill with water. On the far side of this now kind of hole that we've dug, I'm going to start using the push tool just to try and get it a bit more sloped, because at the moment it's a very steep incline. The penguins will just be dropping it into the water. We want some shallow areas as well, so I'm going to try and make it a bit tiered. As you can see, I use the flatten to foundation tool again and just make 3 different layers so that we have a gradual slope into the deep water rather than a really stark drop. I can then use the smooth tool to obviously smooth this out. It's something that I always do after digging holes like this, just to help it all blend together a bit. Now that I know where the water and the underwater viewing gallery is going to be, I can start to place our barriers. And the one that I'm going to be using for this underwater viewing gallery is the thick glass option. Now this has come with the aquatics pack, so if you don't have this, by all means just use the glass barrier. It will do the exact same thing. I just felt that kind of it makes more sense, you know? It's going to be thicker glass for holding that much water, so that's kind of why I did it. Also, I much prefer these concrete pillars opposed to the weird like plastic beams you get in between your glass panels when you're using just the glass barrier. So this is much nicer in my opinion, and you can colour it to match the rocks and stuff inside the habitat a lot easier. So yeah. With the glass barrier in place and at a decent height, I can start to run a concrete barrier around the rest of the perimeter of this habitat. It is going to be around 50-50 between land space and water space, so yeah, that's kind of what I did when, that's kind of what I was doing when I was deciding on how big this habitat was going to be. I kind of kept in mind it's going to be 50-50. Now we can add the water to this area. I'm going to go for rough water because it's quite a large body of water, and we're hoping the penguins are going to be in there swimming a lot. There should be quite a bit of movement, so I think that's just going to help a little bit. And fortunately enough, we can get it pretty high, which means we can move on to what's going to take up the bulk of this habitat build, and that is rock work. These new aquatic faux rocks, I've just fallen in love with them so hard. If you watched my last video, you would have seen me building a couple caves for the Arctic fox and the red panda. I'm doing the exact same thing here for the penguin. It's a little bit more elaborate. I'm using the archways, and I'm also using the little step pieces and stuff. But yeah, in terms of colouring, I do all of the cracks and recesses a pure white. And then the main body colour for these stones is going to be the lightest blue option. I colour it after the fact just so that I don't have to keep messing about, because if you accidentally come out of this screen that you can see right now, then you have to re-change all of the colour options, and it's very annoying. So I'd much rather just build the thing and then colour it all at once at the end. There's not much for me to say in terms of what I'm doing here. It literally is just mucking about, making sure things blend together by using smaller rocks and stuff to fill gaps. And yeah, so I'm gonna just leave now. I'm gonna shut up for a little bit, and you can just watch this habitat house being built. at this point that I remembered that I needed an above ground viewing gallery as well, so I went back over to the pathing area and just did another section coming off and hovering just above our underwater viewing gallery. You do this basically the same way, but you don't have to adjust the height. It will just run naturally off of the land level. I guess that's the best way to put it. The level of the ground that is already in place. It will run straight off that and maintain that height, so you can make a lovely little hovering gallery like this. Now, in my opinion, it looks a little bit weird having this floating viewing gallery above the underwater one, so I'm going to separate the two by covering this area in flat rocks, specifically the aquatic faux rock number 5. I'm just going to use that to really roughly cover up the roof kind of area that would be inside the underwater viewing gallery. It's really nothing fancy. This isn't really going to be seen by anyone from underneath. You're going to be focusing on what's happening inside the habitat, aren't you? So I'm just bridging this area, making sure that it's not open and exposed like this, because I don't think it looks very nice. Yeah, I'm just going to cover this entire area, colour it all the same as the rocks that are inside the habitat, and we will go from there. And whilst doing this, inspiration struck. I didn't plan to do this originally, but I decided to make a cave kind of entrance. Up here we've got this little square of land, then it slopes into the ground and you access your underwater viewing gallery. So what if we disguise this and make it look like an icy cave? So I just use a wide range of faux rocks, exactly like you're building one of the caves for a habitat, and colour them accordingly. It was great fun to make something that looks so natural because it is all the rocks, but is very functional for your guests. Back inside our habitat, we're going to start adding the enrichment items, and the first thing that I add is a blueprint for an aquatic jetty. Now this is going to jut out into the water, meaning that the animals can walk out and it just fills some space. At the moment it's very wide and open, and whilst that could look okay, I think having more things going on will just make it look a bit better. On the jetty I had the idea of adding a couple of the food items, so the frozen fish block. I'm just going to sink that metal disc into the ground a little bit because I really don't like how it looks. So I like to sink them slightly below the surface so they're kind of invisible once the item is in place. I'm also making sure to add our, what are they called, coolers. Yeah, making sure to add those under the ground because we don't want to see those either, but we do need this habitat to be nice and cool for our penguins. In the deep area of the water, we're going to add the underwater fish feeder box, and again I'm sinking that just below the surface as well, having only the funnel poking out the top. I don't know if this necessarily looks better, I just kind of prefer it this way. I'm also going to add a couple sprinklers to this habitat, as the penguins obviously love to play in the splashing water. And a tip that I forgot to tell you when I was building the Arctic fox habitat, because I did it there as well, is to change the colour of these. If you press in on the touchpad in the middle of your remote, you can edit the colours of your items. And for these I changed the first two sections to white, leaving only the, what do you call them? I guess the kind of, I really don't know what you call them, the nozzles. Yes, that's the word. The nozzles where the water comes out, I leave those the blue that it's already as, because I think it actually works really nicely. I'm also going to add 2 blue rubber ducks, because who doesn't love a rubber duck? There's also a submarine under the water, and I'm going to add a couple of these platform floats to the habitat as well. Now at this stage I'm not exactly paying attention to those red lines. I didn't understand what they meant. Later I'll come back and fix it. What you need to ensure is that the red lines are actually blue. This means that the platforms are accessible from all 4 sides, and the penguins will actually use it, because at the moment they're just floating items that will not be used. So that is something to bear in mind. With those items in place, it is time to get our penguins into the habitat, and I'm fairly confident that they're going to want a little bit of snow. I don't know why, I just have this feeling they might like snow. But actually, to my surprise, they require quite a bit more than just snow. They don't just want the tundra stereotypical kind of look, they want quite a mix. And you can see our caretaker sprinting along there to deliver our wonderful king penguin. And I've got to say, I wasn't expecting to enjoy these guys in-game quite as much. I don't know why I didn't think I would. I just thought I'd prefer other animals in the game to these. They have very quickly become my favourite animal. They are so charming and they have so much character. It's just great fun to watch them. So yeah, as I said, they do actually require quite a bit more than just snow. And surprisingly, they want a bit of sand as well, which I really didn't expect. So this area really does end up looking quite beachy with a mix of soil and sand and rock. With the terrain distribution needs met, it is time to get those faux rocks back out and absolutely litter this habitat. Cover it completely in faux rocks, kind of looking like ice blocks. That's why I picked the colours that I choose. I think it ends up looking like a big block of ice or snow. So yeah, I absolutely cover this enclosure with these rocks. In terms of plant life in this habitat, we are extremely limited, and not just in terms of the coverage that they want, but actually the plants that are available in their biome and continent. There really aren't that many. So what I opt to do is kind of blanket the water floor, the ocean floor. It's not the ocean though, is it? So I blanket the bottom of their swimming area with this underwater hydrilla plant, really large one, and I just kind of cover the biggest area that I can with this without taking up too much of the coverage allowance, because we do want a couple plants above ground. Now above ground I really do keep it sparse, and I just use a couple trees at the very border of the habitat, kind of growing at the water's edge, you know, where it's a bit more soily rather than snowy. Other than that, there aren't any plants in this habitat. It is proper barren, but I think all of that rock work that we did really helps to bring it to life, regardless of the lack of plants. Back over at the cave entrance to our viewing gallery, I used some penguin statues just to put on the roof of it, and then I used these big triangular curved penguin kind of things. I'm really not sure how to describe them, but I used those either side of the doorway as I think it looks quite nice as an entrance. Now, I must admit at this point I thought I was done with the habitat, but when I came back the next day to continue playing, I decided to make some adjustments. And the first one is this glass barrier right at the front of the habitat. Rather than having it extending high up into the sky like this, I'm going to drop it down to the level of the barrier that is on the raised viewing gallery, so that you kind of feel like you could just step into the habitat. Obviously you don't want to, you will drown. I ultimately decided to drop the height of all the barriers and then mask all the concrete ones using some big aquatic faux rocks. I think this just helps to kind of sell this environment. By making the edges look as natural as the inside, it just stops it looking so man-made. So that's what I did with the barriers, and after that, I was kind of done. But there was also this horrifying moment where there was like a hydra of penguins, so that was pretty scary. Thank you so much for having watched this video. If you enjoyed it, please consider giving it a thumbs up and maybe subscribing to the channel to see more builds in the future. Thank you for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.